Welcome to the layer-by-layer overview of Psalm 14. A way to remember this psalm is with the phrase, "Do they not understand?" Because the psalm is a lament about those who act as if they do not understand basic good and evil. The psalm has three sections: a complaint of disgust and despair about the folly of the fool, then a section on the insight that the oppressed have, and a joyful closing statement of deliverance. This traces the mood of the three sections from possible hopelessness through frustration, but ending with triumph. The superscription begins, "For the director," by David. The superscription tells us that Psalm 14 is a psalm of David. The evidence indicates that this refers to Davidic authorship, as discussed in our forthcoming exegetical issues video on superscriptions. It is also an invitation to read the psalm from the perspective of David's life, as narrated in 1 and 2 Samuel. There is no evidence that it derives from a particular historical incident, so it is best read as a general reflection on society. The fool has said to himself, "There is no God." They have corrupted their deeds. They have done abominable deeds. There is none who does good. The fool is the stereotypical character of wisdom literature, who rejects what is good, true, and wise. He often seems to prosper for a while, but his eventual downfall is certain. In this psalm, the fool has decided that there is no God whose presence matters. There is no God who cares about wickedness and who holds those who do wickedness to account. The fool is consequently free to do good or evil as he pleases, without concern for a higher authority in heaven. The consequence is that people have freely corrupted their deeds and engaged in abominable acts. All alike have abandoned the pursuit of righteousness, such that there is none left who does good. See our Poetic Features video for a fuller explanation of how this psalm likely alludes to Genesis 6, in which all flesh had corrupted their way, leading to God's destroying the earth with a worldwide flood. The allusion to the flood cautions us against too quickly understanding this as hyperbole. In the flood story, human wickedness prompted God to grieve over creation and decide to destroy it. God needs to decide, here in Psalm 14, what the real situation is, which prepares us for what happens in verse 2. The Lord looked down from heaven upon humans in order to see, is there anyone who acts wisely, who seeks after God? In order to bring justice, a judge needs to examine the evidence. The Lord looks down from heaven in order to ascertain the truth about human behavior. Placing verse 2 immediately after verse 1 has an ironic effect. The fool had insisted the Lord was not concerned, but the Lord is actively engaging because he is concerned. The question the Lord asks is there anyone who acts wisely and who seeks after God? In wisdom literature, folly and wisdom are the two opposites. The fool has announced himself, but is there anyone to represent wisdom? The one who acts wisely will be the reverse of the fool. Instead of claiming there is no God, he will spend his time seeking God. All have turned away. All alike have become corrupt. There's no one who does good. There is not even one. This statement resonates strongly with Genesis 6:5, in which every inclination of the thoughts of mankind's heart was only evil all the time. Genesis emphasizes the pervasiveness of the evil in each person. Psalm 14 here emphasizes the pervasiveness of the evil and corruption within society. All members of society have become corrupt. This is stated 4 times in these 2 lines, first affirmatively and then negatively. There is no room left for exceptions, which causes great tension within the psalm. Truly, is there no one good? The answer at this point is not even one. Irony continues. In verse 1, the fool assumed that God does not engage because he does not care. Here in verse 3, a possible implication is that God does not engage because the earth is filled with wickedness. The fool had it backwards. Do they not understand? All those who do evil, who eat my people as they have eaten food, who have not called upon the Lord. The psalmist cries out in exasperation, "How can these fools not know? Surely they must know." Their oppression is depicted as having the same attitude toward eating people as toward eating bread, which is presumably with casualness and frequency, with no concern whatsoever for the object eaten. See our Poetic Features video for how this emphasizes the grotesqueness of the image. The fools, now in the plural, thought the Lord was not concerned about them, and now they are not concerned about others whom they are oppressing in some form. The fools have become like their own image of God, not caring about those under them. Those who do not call upon the Lord do not have the same character as the Lord. The rhetorical question, "Do they not understand?" exposes the double answer. Yes, at some level, the fools certainly know the truth. But no. In practice, fools act as if they did not know the truth. This section serves partly as a profession of confidence that the righteous and oppressed are not forgotten by God, but it also serves as a warning for the wicked fool. The psalmist is urging his audience, don't be a fool, because the Lord will hold each person accountable. If they had understood, then they would have feared a fear, because God is with the righteous group. Verse 5 follows up on the rhetorical question, addressing what would have happened if the fool or the wicked had understood right from wrong. Then they would have feared mightily, knowing that there is a God who holds people accountable. Indeed, God is active among the righteous, looking after them. His presence entails not only residing with them, but an active presence in righting wrongs, in bringing about justice, including holding evildoers accountable. If the fools had understood, they would not have been fools. You would put to shame the insight of the oppressed, because the Lord is his refuge. However, they were fools, and here we find out why. The oppressed, which can mean either the poor, as in financially oppressed, or those abused by others, have an insight. This insight is precisely what the fools lack by definition of being fools: the truth about the Lord. This angers the fools who want to believe there is no God, neither for accountability nor for refuge. Because the oppressed do believe God is on their side, the fools mock them. Because the Lord is the refuge of the oppressed, the wicked fools mock the oppressed and their trust in the Lord. Not only do the fools themselves believe there is no God, they seek to shame those who do believe that there is a God who cares. Oh, that deliverance for Israel would come from Zion. When the Lord restores the fortune of his people, let Jacob rejoice. Let Israel be glad. Verse 7 is an elaboration on the insight of the oppressed, now thoroughly embraced by the psalmist as his own insight. Deliverance is likely not military deliverance here, but deliverance from oppression of any kind. The psalmist looks for this deliverance to come from Zion, which means justice as executed by the King according to God's commands. If interpreted as a prayer in David's mouth, this would be a poignant expression of his own responsibility toward his people, to bring justice in order to make an end to oppression. See our exegetical issues video for why we read this as the Lord restoring the fortune of his people. When we recall the allusion to the flood in Genesis, we may remember that the judgment of the flood was not the end of humanity. The flood wiped the earth clean in order to prepare for another attempt by humanity to live in righteousness. The stark absolutism of this psalm left no one at all who was good, just as before the flood. But just as after the flood came the restoration of humanity, this psalm looks forward to another restoration after this round of wickedness. Because the psalmist is confident that the Lord will restore the fortune of his people, whether with reference to exile, enemies, or some other distress, he exhorts Israel to rejoice and be glad. This rejoicing is not ignoring the folly and wickedness earlier in the psalm, but recognizing that after the folly and wickedness, there will be restoration. And now, Psalm 14 in its entirety. For the director, by David. The fool has said to himself, "There is no God." They have corrupted their deeds. They have done abominable deeds. There is none who does good. The Lord looked down from heaven upon humans in order to see, is there one who acts wisely, who seeks after God? All have turned away. All alike have become corrupt. There is no one who does good. There is not even one. Do they not understand, all those who do evil, who eat my people as they have eaten food, who have not called upon the Lord? Then they would have feared a fear, because God is with the righteous group. You would put to shame the insight of the oppressed, because the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that deliverance for Israel would come from Zion. When the Lord restores the fortune of his people, let Jacob rejoice. Let Israel be glad. This has been the overview video for Psalm 14. Our aim is to present a single, coherent interpretation of the psalm. Our exegetical issues video discusses other scholarly views, and our poetic features video explores the distinctively poetic nature of the psalm. All these videos are offered free of charge thanks to the generosity of our donors. Please visit us at cdbr.org to learn more. Thank you.